Hey there! Today we'll be going over this staircase, which I made for a miniature building I'm working on. It's made from cardboard and XPS foam, and is a nice and easy build, as long as you do a little planning and a few simple calculations beforehand. Along the way, I'll also show you a neat trick that I find useful when working with cardboard, chipboard or foam board. The first thing we need to decide is how high we want our stairs to be. We'll need to leave clearance for a door in there, so somewhere around 30mm is enough. The material I'm using for the substructure is a 4mm thick sandwich of cardboard, so we want to go for the closest multiple of 4. 28mm will be fine. Remember, we can do this because we're building around these stairs. If you're building stairs to fit an existing model, you're going to have to fit your material to the space, not the other way around. The maths for that is slightly more involved but not terribly complex, so if you want to see it, let me know in the comments and I'll make a post about it. We'll also need to decide how large we want each step to be. I want a miniature with a 25mm base to fit comfortably on the landing, so 30mm of width sounds good. However, we will be adding 5mm thick bricks on either side, so to account for that, we start off with a 40mm width. Next, we'll need to figure out how deep and how high each individual step will be. In this case, I'm going for 10mm deep by 4mm high, because I like those proportions, and it fits the material I have. But you might want to have deeper steps so you can stand miniatures on them. In that case, you have two options. You could make your staircase longer, which is fine if you have the space, or you could make fewer higher steps. Which works, though I'm personally not a great fan of the way it looks. The process works the same, whichever you choose, but you'll make things easier for yourself if the total height is a multiple of the height of a single step. Because the way you calculate the number of steps you need is to divide the total height by the step height. 28 divided by 4 gives us 7, so that's how many steps we need. The last thing we need to decide is how long we want our landing to be, and add 5mm to account for the bricks on the end. In my case, I went for 40mm, including that allowance. If we add everything up, that's 7 steps at 10mm each, and a 40mm landing for a total of 110mm. We don't need to make any decisions about the substructure because we just need a layer for each step except the topmost one. The one right under the landing is the same length as the top step plus the landing, and they increase by the depth of one step all the way down to the ground. Okay, that was a fair bit of theory, but planning that out makes things a lot smoother. Now, I did promise you a useful trick, so let's start cutting, and I'll show you how to make some precise cuts real quick. First, pick a reference edge. You'll want the straightest edge on your material, but if it's really ragged, you can just cut a new clean edge with a ruler to work from. Line the reference edge up with a line on your cutting mat. You really want to be careful here, and make sure you don't move it for now. Once you're lined up, take your knife and nick the material at the top and the bottom along a single vertical line on your cutting mat. It's easiest if you place yourself right above the work so there isn't any error due to perspective. Obviously, it helps a lot if your cutting mat is clean, unlike mine. Now, drop your knife into one of the nicks you just made and slide your ruler up to the blade. Use this as a pivot so the ruler is lined up with the other nick. Keep a light pressure on the ruler with one hand to lock it down and start making multiple shallow cuts. Don't press too hard down or sideways on the blade, and you should get a crisp cut with a nice square corner. Always turn your work to favor your body. Cutting in a line towards yourself gives you a lot more control than cutting across. Just be careful, use a sharp blade, and don't put excessive force into it. I cut 2 of each support into 2mm thick cardboard, which we're going to glue into 4mm thick sandwiches. Here's the important part. Every pair has one cut along the congregation and one cut across. If we alternate the directions, it's going to become very strong and resistant to warping. I find it easiest to glue them in pairs first, wait for the PVA to tack up, and then assemble the lot. Here you need to be a little careful to make sure that they're lined up right. PVA dries quickly on cardboard, so we are able to start gluing the steps soon. The steps I'm using here are longer than we need. Rather than cutting each one to size, it's a lot easier to cut them long and then trim them flush once the glue dries. They're also very slightly thicker than the supports, 5mm instead of 4. You'll see why when we get to the texturing. The top of the landing gets some 10x10 XPS paving stones. I cut these and the bricks in bulk on my hot wire cutter, and you can see how I do that in this video up here. If you don't have a hot wire cutter, you could cut them with a knife, but that can be miserable work. You'd have a much easier time peeling some foam board and cutting that up instead. Once the glue dries, we're going to trim those steps and shave some of the material off the front of each of them to make them look more worn. Next, we're getting a ball of aluminum foil and working it all over the foam. This will give it a nice stony texture, and this is why we started off with a 5mm thick foam rather than 4. This process will compress it slightly. We'll want a little wall around the side and back, so let's get back to the drawing board. The wall should be around 50mm taller than the steps, but I want to cap it with some 5mm slabs, so let's keep the core at 10mm. It should also reach halfway on the bottom step, so I backed it off 5mm to account for the brick thickness. Finally, the back part can be cut from the same piece and folded over. You could just make this a separate piece, but if you can make it in one, the crease will make it more solid. With the core of the wall glued on, we can start with the bricks. If we start from the inside all the way to the bottom step, the glue has plenty of time to cure, so we can flush cut the excess here, where it will link up to the wall of the building. Then we do the same on the outside. Here we don't want to trim off the excess because we'll need it to join cleanly with the external brickwork. Okay, we're almost there. Before we finish off the walls, we need to trim down the bricks on the slope back down to the core. Make sure your glue is fully cured before you do this, and if you tear any off, don't worry. We can easily fill them in later. The last thing to add are the slabs, which are just glued on. We'll finish them as we did the steps, slicing off the edges and gently texturing them with a foil ball. And there you go, you have stairs now. I will be putting together the rest of the building in pretty much the same way as I did my inn, so you can watch this video next if you want to see what I am going for. I'll also be trying a couple of new things, so watch this space. Bye!